A man and his young son are exploring their newly inherited property when they find signs that someone has been living inside a derelict windmill on the premises. But as they investigate further, it becomes clear that this is no ordinary woman and that she's in desperate need of help. To get out alive, they must work together to solve the mystery of the windmill before time runs out. Emmett Sloan had always considered himself a city slicker, far more at home in a high-rise apartment than an isolated farmhouse. So when he learned that his estranged uncle had passed away and left him this property, he wasn't exactly thrilled. In fact, he'd all but forgotten about the inheritance until a lawyer's letter arrived on his desk, reminding him that he was now the proud owner of the windmill at the top of Widow S. Hill. Curious, and perhaps a little morbid, he decided to take his 8-year-old son Tommy with him on a visit. The drive out to the property was longer than expected, taking them through narrow country lanes and across babbling brooks. And by the time they reached their destination, both father and son were eager to get a closer look. The windmill stood silhouetted against the gray sky, its blades motionless, a testament to its long period of neglect. According to the lawyer, the previous owner, Emmett's uncle Thaddeus, had died unexpectedly in a freak accident just over a year ago. Since then, the windmill had remained abandoned, its future uncertain. Now standing before it, Emmett felt a surge of emotions, a mix of apprehension, curiosity, and a deep sense of loss for an uncle he barely knew. He parked his car and turned to Tommy, his eyes twinkling with a mixture of fear and excitement. "Well, here we are," he said, trying to sound nonchalant. "Looks like it's just us," Tommy replied, his gaze fixed on the imposing structure. "Do you think there's a monster in there?" Emmett laughed, ruffling his son's hair. "Only if you believe in monsters," he said, though his own heart was pounding in his chest. As they walked toward the windmill, Tommy picked up the pace, his earlier shyness forgotten, raced ahead of his father. Disappearing into the labyrinthine structure, before Emmett could even open the creaky door, inside, the air was thick with the scent of dust and decay. Sunbeams slanted through cracks in the boarded-up windows, illuminating motes dancing in the stillness. It was eerily silent, the kind of silence that amplifies every creak and groan of the aging building. Emmett called out for Tommy, his voice echoing in the vast space, but there was no reply. "Tommy," he called again, his voice edged with concern. Just then, a small figure emerged from the gloom, his silhouette outlined against a sliver of sunlight. "I found you," Emmett said, rushing towards his son, relief flooding him. "Don't do that, Dad," Tommy scolded, his voice unusually sharp. "Hey, you scared me." Emmett knelt down, meeting his son's gaze. "I'm sorry, champ. I won't do it again." But their moment was interrupted by a soft sigh from above. It seemed to come from the floor above them. Was someone else in the windmill? Emmett exchanged a nervous glance with Tommy, and slowly they began to make their way up the winding stairs, each step creaking ominously beneath their weight. On the landing, Emmett hesitated. The source of the noise was now clear, a set of old wooden doors at the end of the hall. A key was needed to unlock them, but where could he find one? He returned to the ground floor, searching for another way out, but soon realized that the windmill's design was a maze. Every door they opened led them back to the same landing. With no other options, Emmett retraced his steps, hoping to find the key to the elusive upper floor. As he descended the stairs, a glint of metal caught his eye. Tucked beneath a loose floorboard was a rusty key. Its teeth perfectly matched the lock. He and Tommy exchanged excited glances, and together they unlocked the door at the top of the stairs. Behind it was a room unlike any they'd seen before. In the center stood an old tin cup, and surrounding it was a collection of objects that hinted at a recent presence, a half-finished drawing, a book lying open, and clothes strewn across a chair, as if their owner had just stepped out. It was clear someone had been living here, but who? Before either father or son could speak, a cough echoed through the room. They whirled around to find a woman emerging from the shadows. She was tall and slender, her face framed by a cascade of fiery red hair. Her eyes, the color of the stormy sea, held a mixture of apprehension and defiance. "Who are you?" Emmett asked cautiously. "And how did you get here?" The woman hesitated, then spoke in a voice as soft as the rustle of leaves. "My name is Iris," she said. "I've been living here for quite some time now." Her gaze dropped to the floor, her voice barely a whisper. Emmett, taken aback by her evasiveness, pressed for answers. "How long have you been here, and why are you hiding?" Iris's shoulders slumped. I don't want to talk about it, she murmured, her voice laced with sadness. Emmett, sensing her distress, softened his tone. Look, I won't ask any more questions if you don't want to answer them. Please, I'd like to know what's going on here. Iris lifted her head, her eyes pleading. It's not safe here, she whispered urgently. You need to leave. Emmett, concerned for both his son and the mysterious woman, wanted to insist. But Iris's words hung in the air, a warning that he couldn't ignore. As he looked into her haunted eyes, he saw a depth of fear that he couldn't bear. Let's go, Tommy, he said, turning away. But just as he took the first step back, a voice boomed from the doorway. Nowhere to go now, Emmett, the newcomer drawled. I've got you dead to rights. And standing behind him were two burly men, their faces hard and unreadable. With a start, Emmett recognized the speaker. It was Clay Murdoch, a notorious local figure with a reputation for shady dealings and a long list of enemies. Emmett's mind raced. How had Murdoch found them? And what did he want? Murdoch, his eyes gleaming with malice, stepped forward. Looks like my little birdie was right, he said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. So you're the famous Emmett Sloan. Emmett, his heart pounding in his chest, kept his voice steady. And you are? Us, he asked cautiously. Clay Murdoch, the man replied, his smile widening. And these fine gentlemen, he gestured to the men flanking him, are my associates. Emmett's gaze flicked to the men, his gut twisting with unease. He could feel Tommy trembling against his legs, his small body shaking with fear. He knelt down, whispering words of comfort and reassurance, hoping to shield his son from the growing tension.
Ow.
You wouldn't happen to be looking for anything in particular, Mr. Murdoch? Emmett asked, attempting a casual tone. Murdoch chuckled, a low, guttural sound. Just a friendly visit? Nothing more? He said, his eyes gleaming with mischief. But it seems we have a bit of a problem. Blocking the door, blocking their exit. That's right, he continued, a wicked grin spreading across his face. You boys are stuck with us now. The sudden burst of movement, Murdoch lunged, knocking Emmett off balance. Before Emmett could react, Murdoch's men closed in, their faces twisted with aggression. Get away from him! Emmett shouted, scrambling to protect his son, but there were too many of them. They were shoved and jostled, their bodies crashing against the rough stone walls. As Emmett fought to keep hold of Tommy, he noticed something in the corner of his eye. An old oil drum lay overturned, its metal surface glinting in the dim light. With a surge of adrenaline, he kicked it loose, sending it rolling towards the men. The unexpected obstacle caused a momentary pause, enough for Emmett to gather himself and make a dash for the stairs. He could hear Murdoch's enraged shouts behind him, but he didn't dare look back. The only thought in his mind was escape. With Tommy in his arms, he raced up the stairs, his feet pounding on the wooden steps. Above him, the windmill groaned, its ancient bones protesting the sudden commotion. Reaching the landing, he hesitated. The door to Iris's room was still ajar. Should he seek help? He couldn't be sure. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was empty except for Iris, who stood by the window, her face pale, her eyes wide with alarm. We have to go, he said urgently, grabbing her hand. There's no time to explain. Together, they raced back downstairs, the windmill's shadows stretching long and menacing in the fading light. Outside, the men were gone. Relief flooded Emmett, but it was short-lived. He realized with a jolt that they were trapped. The car was surrounded, its engine blocked by a fallen tree trunk. Emmett scanned the area for another way out, his eyes landing on a rickety wooden cart. It was their only chance. Loading the cart with supplies, they prepared for the journey.
Yes.
As Iris and Emmett climbed aboard, Tommy, his face streaked with dirt and tears, clutched a rusty wrench. I'll protect you, Dad, he whispered, his eyes resolute. Emmett, touched by his son's bravery, squeezed his shoulder. Thank you, champ, he said, meaning it. With Iris at the reins, they set off, the cart creaking under their weight. The windmill, now shrouded in darkness, loomed over them, its blades ominously silent. Through the gathering gloom, they saw Murdoch emerge from the trees, his face contorted with rage. Can't hide forever, Emmett, he shouted, his voice echoing through the stillness. I'll find you. And as the cart lurched forward, the gears of the windmill, once frozen in time, began to turn, driven by an unseen force. Their escape had only just begun, and the race to stay one step ahead of Murdoch was fraught with danger.